Back, the most powerful decision an empath will ever make has nothing to do with fighting back, nothing to do with revenge, and everything to do with one quiet, irreversible shift that happens inside their mind. Not a dramatic shift. Not the kind that announces itself with tears or confrontation or the visible, public collapse of someone who finally broke under the weight of everything they had been carrying. The silent kind. The kind that happens in the stillness of an ordinary moment when something inside the empath simply stops. Stops explaining. Stops justifying. Stops pouring itself into spaces that were never going to be filled no matter how much was offered. And everything, every relationship, every dynamic, every pattern that had been repeating for years begins to reorganize itself around that single, quiet, irreversible decision. Here is what most people completely miss about empaths. Not their sensitivity, not their depth, not the extraordinary capacity for genuine feeling that defines them and that the world consistently mistakes for weakness rather than the specific, rare form of strength it actually is. What most people miss is what happens when the empath finally reaches back, the end of their willingness to abandon themselves in service of everyone else's emotional world. What happens is not what anyone expects. It is not the hardening that most people predict. It is not the shutdown, the withdrawal, the becoming cold that the people who depended on the empath's boundlessness quietly fear. It is something more profound, more permanent, more fundamentally transformative than any of those surface-level responses could produce. It is the reclamation of a self that was always there waiting beneath the giving to be chosen. Stay with this. Because what follows will change how you understand your own energy forever. Every human being possesses a finite reservoir of emotional and psychological energy. Not infinite, not renewable without conditions, finite, requiring specific conditions to replenish and depleted by specific patterns of use that go unmanaged. Most people manage this reservoir instinctively. They pull back when they are tired. They say no when they are drained. They maintain not always consciously, not always gracefully, but functionally a basic relationship between what they give and what they have available to give. The empath overrides back this instinct consistently, comprehensively, with the specific automatic generosity of someone whose nervous system was calibrated from the earliest experiences of their life to prioritize other people's emotional reality over their own. They give when they have nothing left. They listen when their own interior is screaming for silence. They hold space for everyone else while their own inner world collapses without anyone. Noticing because the empath is so skilled at holding space that the collapse happens invisibly beneath the surface of the continuous giving that everyone around them has come to depend on. This pattern, left unexamined and unchallenged, leads not just to tiredness, not just to burnout in the ordinary sense, but to something deeper and more specific. A fundamental erosion of the self, the slow, quiet, entirely invisible dismantling of a person who has been so continuously present for everyone else that they have lost genuine contact with their own interior. Here is the brutal truth that most empaths resist receiving, because receiving it requires confronting something they have spent years avoiding. The depletion is not something that happened to you. It is back, something you participated in. Not from weakness, not from pathology, from the specific, deeply conditioned belief installed before you were old enough to question it that your worth was located in your usefulness, that love was something earned through service, that your needs were secondary to the maintenance of everyone else's comfort. That belief has been running your emotional life from below the level of awareness, and it has been costing you in energy, in self-knowledge, in the specific, irreplaceable aliveness of someone who is genuinely present in their own life, more than you have been willing to calculate. Here is what the depletion is actually signaling. Not that you gave too much, not that you are too sensitive, that the system is out of balance in ways that the ordinary surface adjustments, the temporary boundaries, the occasional self-care, the periodic retreats from the people most responsible for the drain cannot correct, because the imbalance is not primarily external. It is internal. A fundamental misalignment between where you have been directing your energy and what you have been receiving in return. The depletion is not the problem. It is the signal T. Back. Something requires permanent change, not adjustment. and the change it is pointing toward is the most important one available to you. There is a specific moment in the empath's journey that changes everything. Not gradually, not through the slow accumulation of evidence finally reaching a tipping point. Suddenly, quietly, in one interior shift that reorganizes the entire relational landscape. The moment they stop seeing people as who they could be and start seeing them as who they consistently are. This is not cynicism. Cynicism is a wound wearing wisdom's clothing. This is something categorically different. The specific, clear-eyed, finally honest capacity to see a person accurately, to receive the information that their consistent behavior has been providing without the interpretive filter of hope that kept translating that behavior into something more palatable than it actually was. The empath stops loving potential, starts observing patterns, stops hearing promises, starts measuring actions, stops extending the benefit of the doubt for the 100th time to people whose behavior has never once warranted it, and perhaps for the first time in their relational life gives back themselves the benefit of the truth. Here is what this shift actually is beneath the psychological description. It is the empath's perception returning to them. The extraordinary perceptual gift that they have the capacity to see beneath surfaces, to sense what is actually happening beneath what is being presented, to know with a precision that precedes logical analysis what a person is and what they are not, being redirected from the service of everyone else's management back to the honest navigation of the empath's own life. They always knew, long before they admitted it, long before the evidence became undeniable. Long before the pattern had repeated enough times that hope finally exhausted itself against the wall of consistent reality. They knew, and they used the specific, generous, sometimes self-destructive creativity of the empath's hope to explain away what they knew. The withdrawal of projections is the moment that explaining stops. Not because the compassion disappears. The compassion remains deeper in some ways than it was before. Because compassion without accuracy is not genuine compassion. It is the performance of compassion in service of a story that keeps back. Empath available to dynamics that do not serve them. Back. Compassion with accuracy is different. It can see clearly what a person is and what they need, and simultaneously hold a clear and honest assessment of whether the empath is the right person to provide it, or whether providing it comes at a cost to themselves that genuine wisdom cannot sanction. The empath does not become cold when projections are withdrawn. They become honest. And honesty finally, completely, without the softening of perpetual hope, is what sets them free. Not free from caring in ways that cost them themselves. When the empath makes the decision, the quiet, irreversible, permanent decision to protect their energy as a non-negotiable way of being, rather than a temporary strategy deployed in moments of crisis, something specific and predictable happens in the landscape of their relationships. The people who were drawing from the empath's energy without genuine reciprocity reveal themselves with a clarity that was previously obscured by the empath's continuous availability. The takers become uncomfortable. The people who had organized their emotional life around the assumption of the empath's boundless giving find themselves facing a void they cannot fill because they never developed the internal capacity to fill it. They never had to. The empath was always there. Available, renewable, endlessly accessible, and now they are not. This discomfort, the specific destabilizing discomfort of someone whose supply has been removed, frequently presents as anger, as disappointment, as the specific accusation that the empath has changed, has become selfish, has abandoned the relationship. What it actually is the reaction of a dynamic whose hidden architecture has been exposed. The empath, seeing this reaction clearly through the lens of the accurate perception they have reclaimed, recognizes something they could not have recognized before. The reaction is not about them. It is about the loss of access. And the loss of access is not the same thing as the loss of love. It is the loss of utility. The end of a dynamic that was always more transactional than it appeared. This recognition is painful, genuinely painful, because the empath genuinely loved most of the people who reveal themselves this way. And the revelation that what was being loved was not being received with equivalent genuineness is a specific grief. Deserves to be honored rather than bypassed, but it is also clarifying. in the specific, permanent, cannot be undone way that genuine clarity always is. And here is what the empath discovers on the other side of this clarity. Their energy finally protected, finally directed with genuine intention rather than compulsive generosity, begins to produce something it never produced when it was being dispersed without discernment. Genuine nourishment. The specific, sustainable, reciprocal nourishment of relationships where the giving flows in both directions and the empath's presence is met with presence rather than consumed by absence. The empath's gift does not diminish when they protect their energy. It becomes sustainable. The difference between a gift that burns out and a gift that endures is not the size of the gift. It is the wisdom of its direction. The empath stops being a sponge and becomes a lighthouse. Stops absorbing every storm, starts choosing which waters to navigate, not available to everyone, invaluable to the ones who genuinely meet them. Here is where the understanding requires action, where the insight, however precise, however resonant, however accurately it describes, what you have been living has to become a decision, behavioral, daily, non-negotiable. Because insight without behavioral change is the most sophisticated form of avoidance available to an intelligent person. You can understand everything described in this script with perfect clarity and return tomorrow to the same patterns, the same dynamics, the same depletion, and the understanding will have changed nothing except your vocabulary for describing what is still happening. The decision to protect your energy is not made once. It is made daily. In the specific, small, accumulating moments where the old pattern, the reaching out, the explaining, the giving beyond capacity, the prioritizing of someone else's comfort over your own honest limits presents itself as the available option. And you choose differently, not dramatically, not with the announcement of someone declaring a new way of being, quietly, consistently. With the specific, unglamorous, entirely private discipline of someone who has decided that their interior life, their peace, their energy, their genuine aliveness is worth protecting at the cost of the temporary discomfort that protection produces in the people who had been benefiting from the absence of it. Here is what you do starting now. Identify the single relationship, dynamic, or pattern in your current life that is consuming your energy without genuine reciprocity. Not in theory, the specific, actual, presently operating dynamic that you already know about and have been managing with the temporary adjustments rather than the permanent change it requires. Stop managing it. Address it. Not with anger, not with the accumulated resentment of someone who waited too long to say the honest thing. With the specific, clean, entirely compassionate clarity of someone who sees exactly what is happening and has decided they are no longer available to participate in it at the cost of themselves. Your energy is not a resource available to anyone who presents themselves with a need. It is the substance of your interior life, the fuel of your genuine aliveness, the specific, irreplaceable, finite capacity that makes everything genuinely valuable about you, your depth, your compassion, your extraordinary perceptual gift possible and sustainable. When it is gone, truly gone, depleted past the point that temporary recovery can address, what goes with it is not just your energy. It is the access to the deepest version of yourself, the version that sees clearly, loves genuinely, gives from genuine abundance rather than from the compulsive generosity of someone who has confused depletion with devotion. Protect it, not as a strategy, as the permanent, non-negotiable, most spiritually intelligent decision of your life. Here is the final truth that belongs at the center of everything this script has been building toward. You were never meant to pour yourself into every space that presented as empty. You were meant to pour yourself with intention, with discernment, with the specific wisdom of someone who knows the difference between genuine reciprocity and chronic extraction into the spaces that are capable of receiving what you carry and returning something real in exchange. That discernment is not selfishness. It is the highest form of respect available to your gift. The acknowledgement that what you carry has genuine value and that genuine value deserves genuine care starting with yours. You are not a resource to be depleted. You are a consciousness to be honored, beginning with the way you honor yourself. Protect you. Back your energy. Not once. Not in reaction to pain. Every day. As a practice. As a devotion. as the most sacred decision you will ever make, because the empath who finally, permanently protects their energy does not lose their gift. They become it fully, sustainably, irreversibly. And nothing in this world can drain what has been genuinely, completely reclaimed.